From the rainforests of Vancouver Island to the mountains of the Canadian Rockies, there's a reason it says beautiful British Columbia on their license plates. In this video, we're headed to 5 wonderful yarn stores, just as many national parks, and seeing so much water. Pack your trail mix, you're gonna need it, and let's explore beautiful British Columbia. After a fantastic time at Flock in Seattle, we have driven to Port Angeles, Washington to take our first ferry. The ferry from Port Angeles to Victoria only takes about an hour and a half, and we were really surprised to learn that we could bring Toaster from our van onto the top of the boat and actually sit inside with him. And he was super well behaved. We made it, and we're going to take advantage of having such a beautiful day because I think tomorrow it's going to be super rainy. We just started to mosey around Victoria to stretch our legs after being on the ferry. The weather was so beautiful on this day. The water was just sparkling, and we happened upon these things called float homes. There were maybe 2 rows of these super adorable, colorful homes right next to the boats. Since it was still morning, we made our way over to a coffee shop and we got some delicious baked goods. Victoria is the capital of British Columbia, so of course we had to go by their gorgeous legislative building. We hopped back in the car just to drive around the city. It was getting really busy, lots of people walking around, and lots of traffic. It is so beautiful here, and we've just found another park right on the beach. I've never seen anything quite like this at a park. One path was for leash optional, and the other path was for only on-leash dogs. Pretty cool. This clip is going to go by in a flash, but it is mile 0 of the Trans-Canada Highway. If you don't know, we have been traveling across Canada all throughout the summer, mostly on the Trans-Canada Highway, or Highway 1. We've gone as far east as St. John's, Newfoundland, and then this is our furthest west point. So it was really exciting to see that mile marker. It is definitely raining today, so we're taking the morning to do some hard work, right, buddy? But we do have some fun stuff coming up today. I think we're gonna go to a yarn store, maybe 2, maybe even to a stitch night, and we're gonna go have high tea. Beehive Wool Shop has been in business since 1906, when it originally opened as Beehive Yarns and Dry Goods. I'll link the store's website down below so you can read the full history, but just in a quick summary, it has been owned by multiple different families throughout its history, and it has moved locations. It even had multiple locations at one point, but its current location is just blocks away from its original location from 1906. They do have their own Beehive Wool Shop yarn, and they carry lots of other lovely yarns from other Canadian dyers. Just down the street from Beehive in Chinatown is a famous alleyway. This is the narrowest commercial street in North America. Then it was time for high tea. There were several different menu options here, so Kent and I each got different tea configurations that had some of the same things. It included a pot of tea for each of us, some little sandwiches, scones, and desserts. We're gonna go to one more yarn store tonight, and it's such a bummer that it's raining because normally they have a stitch night like outside. We just drove by the area and it's so cute. There's people playing live music. There's all these little, what would you call them? Like containers, like the shipping containers that have little shops in it, but it is super rainy. But that doesn't keep us from going into the yarn store, so we're gonna go check it out. The Spinnacle Yarns may be inside of a shipping container, but it is jam-packed full of awesome yarn. The owner, Nicole, is a dyer herself, and every single yarn that I'm going to show you here is dyed in Canada. Several of the employees also dye some of this yarn. It is just a treasure trove of amazing yarns. Even though we couldn't be outside as they normally are for Stitch Night, we did manage to squeeze some chairs inside the shop, and we had the best time chatting the hours away. Vancouver Island is absolutely massive. So today we're making a several-hour drive, first north to Nanaimo and then west to Pacific Rim National Park. We couldn't come to the city of Nanaimo without stopping to get a Nanaimo bar. We gotta talk about the Nanaimo bar. We have had one before in Toronto, but I guess here in Nanaimo, BC is kind of where they were popularized. It is a no-bake dessert and has 3 layers. So the bottom layer is kind of like a crumb layer. There's different recipes. I saw like graham cracker or nuts, but I think the most important thing is coconut. And then the middle layer is a vanilla custard, but I did learn it can be different flavors, but I think vanilla is kind of the classic. And the top layer, always chocolate. There were so many places to choose from in Nanaimo that I didn't really know where to go, but this Red's place was popping up a lot, so we went there. It was also right off the highway, and it's open 24 hours a day. So we are going to be taking the ferry back through Nanaimo. So if this is really delicious, as I just ate a scone that was so good from there. So if this is as good as the scone, we might have to go back. So let's give it a try. Yeah, it's amazing. It's super good. I think I want it to soften like just a little bit. I'd also love to get my hands on a dark chocolate one. I did see there was a couple places that had dark chocolate on top. I love dark chocolate. This is, I think, milk chocolate, but as with most of the chocolate here, it doesn't taste as like blah as milk chocolate in the US. I don't really know how to explain what you're about to see, but this is the old country market where they have goats on the roof. They also have lots of other really fun things to see, some shopping, but mostly food. There is donuts, there was ice cream, and there is this delicious looking cheesy bread. Fair warning though, it is very crowded here.
I got like a creamsicle donut that has like an orange filling and orange icing with vanilla.
Yum.
And then it's a Nanaimo bar.
Excuse me?
The bar.
What is it?
I'm gonna overput something where I'm saying it correct.
Focus
It's a
there.
donut with like vanilla, I think icing, chocolate drizzle, and pieces of the
Nanaimo bar.
So we made it to Greenpoint in Pacific Rim. And every day, because it's still summer, they have a theater show in our campground. And then they have, one talk and 2 walks every day. So we can decide, we're here through like these. So we can go to any of those we want. So we could go see bird basics. That's a walk. We can learn about sharks and bats.
Sharks?
Sharks and bats.
Wow.
Because the water's like right, you can see the water.
Our campground in Pacific Rim National Park Preserve is right in between 2 towns, Tofino and Ucluelet. Since we had so many trees around us, which is so stunning, it doesn't make for good internet reception, so we decided to go into Tofino on the next day so that we could get a little bit of work done. After we worked, we decided to walk around the town and treat ourselves to a little sweet treat. I had a strawberry and rhubarb pie that was so delicious. I want to reach through this screen right now and have another piece. We are in the same campground, but a different spot tonight. Hi, buddy. And Kent has decided he wants to cook outside. What are you making?
We're just doing sausage and like peppers and onions.
I'm gonna put it on rice.
Yeah.
Oh, it's gonna be so good. Wait, that's a lot of onions.
I know, that's a lot of onions.
Okay, we do have peppers. We're not just eating onions.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be another rainy day in the rainforest, who would have guessed? So we're gonna get out and do a short kilometer hike before it gets too bad. It is pretty dang magical walking around in the rainforest though, especially on these boardwalks. It feels like you're just in a massive treehouse. We've gone down about 1 billion stairs at this point, and I asked Kent if he knew that there were stairs, and he said the trail guide said, "What?"
Many, many stairs.
And all he told me was 1 kilometer. We're off to a movie at our campsite. Tonight is all about what?
Pirates.
Pirates? Yep. We were so wrong, it's not even funny. This was not a movie, but it was about pirates. It was actually an interpretive talk by one of the employees of the park, and we learned all about the different sea animals that are in this area. It's hard to tell because it's still super misty, but it is now morning, our last morning in this campsite. So we decided to finally walk down to see the ocean. This tangled mass is not an animal like I first thought. It looked like a snake. It's actually kelp, or a type of seaweed. We ended our time in the park by going on an interpretive walk with another park employee. It was really cool. They informed us all about the old growth rainforest, what that actually means, learning to identify different trees. You wouldn't think that that would be super interesting, but it was fascinating. And it's so cool that all these programs are part of the park entry for free. Then it was back across the island for us. We were staying the night in Port Alberni because the next morning we need to get up, go to Nanaimo, and take the ferry back across to the mainland. But we did get the chance to stop at a brewery and meet somebody, hi Claudette, for dinner. It's our last morning on Vancouver Island, and we're up early because we're headed towards our ferry. We have a little bit of a drive, but we stopped in Cathedral Grove to walk around and look at these huge trees, and some of them are like 800 years old, which is incredible. This is definitely one of those places where videos just don't do it justice. These trees are so big, and we had the place mostly to ourselves, which made it even more special. Since our ferry leaves out of Nanaimo this time, you know what we have to do. One more Nanaimo bar. This time our ferry ride was a little bit longer, almost 2 hours, and it was a newer boat that they did not allow dogs to be on the interior. So rather than be outside in the cold and wind with Toaster, we left him in the safety and comfort of the air-conditioned van. And we've made it back to the mainland and to the city of Vancouver. We have the next few days in Vancouver, and basically our goal is just to sightsee and eat as much as possible. Our first yarn store stop is Sweet Georgia Yarns. They have a medium-sized shop in front of their dye studio. I think I first got introduced to Sweet Georgia Yarns from the Grocery Girls, and specifically their Party of Five, which is their collections of mini skeins. They have such a gorgeous palette of colors and lots of different amazing bases, and even some spinning fiber. I was able to pick out some mini skeins specifically for a project that I'm doing, and they have these really cool color cards that you can look through all the colors. Since we knew we'd be sightseeing out in the city for quite a long time the next day, we opted to drop Toaster off at his sitter so he could have a little vacation too. As we were driving to drop him off though, we passed by this little cafe and Kent saw two people outside knitting, so of course we had to stop in and get our own drinks, and I did a little bit of knitting and then finally worked up the courage to say hi at the very end. This is quite a contrast to our last campground, but it's pretty cool to stay in the city and look at the mountains. super nice thing about staying close to the city is that we could take public transportation into downtown. With Toaster at his sitter, we were free to roam for as long as we wanted on this day, which is a freedom that we don't normally have. So with no plan, we just started walking around Vancouver. As amazing as it is to be in a forest and be with nature, there's just something so cool about a city, and I couldn't stop taking videos of all the amazing art. We stopped to get a coffee and a baked good, and we just sat in the shade and people watched for about 45 minutes. After we got fueled up, we decided to start walking down by the waterfront, which was just so gorgeous. And it's just the perfect time of year. There were so many flowers planted. It was just beautiful. Next, we made a little mistake as we decided we would walk to Granville Island. So we ended up walking over this massive bridge, and we're walking, and we look down below and there's Granville Island, and we're walking, and then we just completely surpassed it. So we essentially walked over Granville Island, and I think we could get back to it once we had come back down to street level if we walked a little further, but instead we opted for a local brewery. If you don't know by now, Kent is the planner on these trips. He spends hours and hours planning routes and looking up restaurants. Honestly, if it weren't for him, I would do none of these things and probably end up just going to coffee shops everywhere. But he found us this really great dim sum place in Chinatown, so we sat and had some great food. I was getting pretty tired by that point and was kind of thinking maybe we should head back to our campsite, but Kent just said, "Come on, I have one more thing, I have one more surprise." He found a place that serves espresso flights. So this is an espresso flight where I'm trying 2 different kinds of espresso on its own and also with milk. The next morning, we are gearing up for what is going to be one of the more difficult hikes that we will probably ever do. We are doing the Grouse Grind on Grouse Mountain. It is just under 3 kilometers, which is about 1.5 miles, and it has 853 meters of elevation gain. Essentially, the entire route is stairs, and I recently learned just now as I was reading through about the trail that these stairs were only put in later on because so many people use this trail for exercise. Just a little something to tell you how difficult this trail is. There are AEDs at 1/4 of the way, halfway, and 3/4 of the way. We took this trail nice and slow. We didn't start out that way. Honestly, if we started out that way, we probably would have been better off and we could have kept a better pace. So if you ever do this trail and you've never done anything like it before, our recommendation from both Kent and I would be stop at every single marker for about 30 seconds and then move on just to catch your breath. But we made it to the top. We did it, and we got to enjoy the view at the chalet. What's even better is there's so much to do up here, and you do not have to hike up to it. We're going to be taking the gondola down. You can also take the gondola up. In this area, they have 2 grizzly bears that were rescued as abandoned cubs, Kula and Grinder. It was truly wild to see a grizzly this close, and I never want to be this close to one without a fence in between us again, because their nails are so long. Another treat at the top is the lumberjack show. Truly, this was pretty corny, but also very entertaining, and it was pretty amazing to see the skills that these guys had. We took the gondola back down, 10 out of 10 for views. We have one more yarn store to go to in Vancouver, and that is Baaad Anna's. If you watched our Manitoba video, you may remember Anna from Long Way Homestead. She gave us a tour of her sheep farm where she has Shetland sheep and she does natural dyeing. Well, this is the shop that she originally opened in Vancouver about 15 years ago. It's now under different ownership and it continues to thrive. They have so many beautiful yarns here, some familiar favorites like Fireweed Fiber Co. and Sweet Georgia, but also some that were new to me, British Columbia dyers. I picked out a beautiful yarn from Sea to Sky Designs and got it all wound up so I could get started on it on our drive. We're leaving Vancouver and we are on the Sea to Sky Highway. See, it's even more appropriate that I got Sea to Sky Designs because we are literally going from the sea in Vancouver to the sky in the mountains of Whistler. But first, we need to make one last yarny stop at Sweet Threads Yarn and Fiber in Squamish. This is such a cool little town with lots of fun shops, and this yarn store is one of them. It is so beautiful. As always, I ask about local dyers when I come in, and they had Crafty Jack's Boutique, which I had not seen yet. Now, this yarn is really special. Not only is it a special colorway for their store called Sea to Sky, again, the highway that we're on, which is so cool, but this is a specially developed base. It is 75% BFL and 25% mohair to make a sock yarn with no synthetic fibers. We're now truly entering the mountains, and we are starting to see our first glimpses of that blue water. After looking this up, I learned that the water looks this blue because it is glacial melt water, and it includes all this really finely ground rock, which somehow kind of sits in the water and suspends the light and kind of tricks our eyes. But it is so stunning. We had another fun stop on the way at Dutchman Dairy. Here you can see the animals. They had roosters and chickens and cows, of course, and they even had their own ice cream. That night we headed to Mount Revelstoke, and this kicks off basically the whole next stage of our trip, where we are just going to national park after national park. We managed to squeeze in one little teeny hike / overlook sort of thing where we got to see the Nels Nelson ski jump. Sneaking up on Toaster. Oh man. It's kind of creepy because he can't see us because it's dark out.
Yeah, that's a dog issue.
Good morning. The road just opened up, so we're off to do some hiking. Good morning, Toaster. Not awake. Wow, it's even nicer this morning. We gotta keep talking so the bears don't find us. Or no, so the bears hear us.
Right.
So they go away. Yeah, there's so many spider webs. Oh my gosh. Do you see them?
Yeah.
Oh. You get to come this time. Come on. Yeah, let's go. Whoa. After a big morning of hiking, we went into the town of Revelstoke, and I went to an Australian-owned coffee shop. They had a really delicious flight of different coffees that they brew, and I got some avocado toast. That afternoon, we started towards our next national park, which is Glacier. But first, we're going to stop and do a short little trail through giant cedars. We did a second pretty similar hike in Glacier National Park called the Hemlock Grove Boardwalk. And this is all still the same day that we did those previous hikes. Watching this back, I'm like, wow, we get so much into a day. It's no wonder that we crash at the end of the night. Now we're properly headed into Glacier National Park, and we're starting to see our first rocky-looking mountains with snow on them. We are just checking out our campsite real quick before we go drive around. and it's pretty cool. Out of all the hikes that we did that day, I think we're ending with my favorite. It was probably the shortest hike by distance, but it was the most fun because we essentially climbed over all of these giant rocks where they had just cut in little stairs. We made it down. That was really cool.
It was very cool.
Kent's about to do some of the things he learned at the lumberjack show. While Kent was working on the fire and getting dinner started, I decided I would cast on some socks to take with me on our hiking for the next few days. This is the yarn that I got just a few days ago at Sweet Threads. I've never tried this base before with the 75% BFL and 25% mohair. So far, I really like how it's knitting up, and I am really excited to try wearing these socks. I just wanted to get the socks cast on and a few rows started, and then I put them away for tomorrow and worked on my Canada blanket. What I really enjoyed with this blanket is trying to finish up all the yarn that I buy in one province before we travel into the next one. Good morning. Today's gonna be another big hiking day, but we're starting out with kind of an easy one just around our campground. All these big, tall stone pillars that you're seeing are actually platforms that used to hold train tracks. Trains are still coming through this area though, they've just moved them to another space. Trying to film one-handed because I got my coffee. The whole last few minutes of this video, we're basically just going to title water because we are about to see some of the most spectacular streams, rivers, and waterfalls that I have ever seen. Basically every hike that we go to from now on has some kind of scenic view of water. And I have been obsessed with sharing this on my Instagram, especially sharing with you some of those nature sounds. Something that really surprised us with all the hiking that we did in British Columbia, we never once saw a bear. Not driving, not hiking. We did see a few signs of bears. We're kind of thinking maybe since it's starting to get later in the year, this was end of August, that bears are starting to kind of slow down, climb up higher, and we're just not seeing as much of them as we did earlier in the year. Now we're off to Yoho National Park. We stopped in a tiny town called Field on the way, and we got stuck by the train for about 15 minutes, which is not a problem when you're a knitter. Since we've shown you so much walking around and hiking, I'm just going to show you some viewpoints right now. The first stop is Takakaw Falls, and we'll have Kent put some text here on the screen so you can see how it's actually written, just in case I'm not saying it correctly. And the second stop is Emerald Lake. We got so lucky to get a parking spot here because it is super busy, and that's because it is absolutely majestic. How beautiful is the water? The The next morning we set out for one more hike in Yoho, Wapta Falls. I think the falls we saw yesterday may be the tallest one that we've seen in BC so far, and this one is probably the widest. Before we begin our drive to our last park and to get to our final province, we stop back in town in Golden at this really cute bookshop. Downstairs is all new books, upstairs is all used books, and a little cafe where they bake everything themselves. Our last park is Kootenay, and we're not going to stay the night here. We're just driving on through as we make our way to Alberta, but we did see some wildlife along the way. These are female bighorn sheep, and they were just standing right there in the road. These last 3-4 days, we went to 4 national parks. They're all right next to each other, and we're about to cross over a provincial border and a park border into our final province, Alberta. We'll see you in a couple weeks for the final installment of our Canadian series.